Unit 6, Lesson 3, Advocacy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conflict Resolution and Peacemaking, the class that teaches you how to manage interpersonal conflict and drama for yourself and others. I'm your instructor, David Lowry. In our last podcast, we discussed the various components of assertiveness. When we talk about assertiveness, we're not speaking about an aggressive approach where we state our wants and needs with no concern for the other. We're talking about an appropriate adaptive assertiveness that tells the other calmly and considerately what we need and what we want. Using this kind of assertiveness, we remain centered in whatever conflict or drama we are in without attacking or running away from the conflict. Though we may feel some discomfort, we will calmly and steadily make our wants and needs known until a time arrives when all concerned are ready to work together in a mutually cooperative way. This podcast will discuss the third part of our triad, advocacy. We started with anger, channeled it into appropriate assertiveness, and now we're ready to progress to advocacy. It's helpful to think of advocacy as assertiveness that peacemakers use on behalf of another person or group. Advocacy. Advocacy is the ability to stand up for ourselves and others by crafting competent and emotionally intelligent messages that clearly states our wants and needs and how to meet them. Understanding and developing skills in these areas increase one's negotiating effectiveness and ability to resolve disputes. Emotional intelligence. We've all heard the saying, "It's not what you say, but how you say it." It takes emotional intelligence, or EQ, to say things that others will listen and genuinely consider what you have to say. The ability of a peacemaker to craft persuasive messages with emotional intelligence helps people express what they want and need to achieve these goals. According to Daniel Goleman, there are 5 characteristics of emotional intelligence. These include self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, motivation, and social skill. For peacemakers, we conceive of EQ as the ability to craft messages about wants and needs so that others can emotionally hear and perceive your request as reasonable. Advocacy can be simple and direct, such as, "I'm hungry. Why don't we all go to the chicken shack for lunch?" In this example, the person asserts their needs, which is hunger, and advocates how to remedy the situation. Of course, more skill is needed when a complex or emotional issue is on the line, such as how might one divide an inheritance or whether a church will split over some internal controversy. Some forms of advocacy, such as equal rights work of Martin Luther King, may take generations to work. While there are entire courses on persuasion, competent communication, branding, political communication, message creation, sales, and the like, here are a few techniques to keep in mind as you advocate for yourself and others. Positive versus a negative demeanor. Here, we're talking about monitoring our attitudes and nonverbal communication. We have every right to feel optimistic about conflict situations. We are learning skills and techniques to help us express our wants and needs and de-escalate negativity in others. Our goal is to keep our attitudes and communication positive. Still, some people believe there are times when one must show attitude or behave negatively. In bargaining literature, there's evidence and debate concerning the effectiveness of strategically using negativity as an advocacy strategy. The bargaining literature often suggests that conflict-averse people will comply sooner with a person's negative demands than positive ones. While those studies are probably accurate, we believe more can be accomplished by utilizing approaches that are designed to build mutual respect and strong relationships. Thus, we do not advocate the intentional use of negativity as a form of strategic manipulation for accomplishing a goal for several important reasons. First, negative strategies are built around an avoidance construct instead of mutual respect. The avoidance construct says, if you're nasty enough, people will meet your demands if for no other reason than to get away from you. People who utilize a negative strategy are focused on ends instead of means. They do not particularly care what others think or whether others like them. Winning is their primary goal. We also hold that making demands and ultimatums is a form of negativity. As peacemakers, we avoid these. Instead, we prefer people learn how to express their needs honestly. Demands usually have a single pathway for fulfillment, so as peacemakers, we favor a solution pathway that offers more potential success options. Finally, since we advocate a relational approach to resolving interpersonal conflict, we cannot advocate for strategic approaches based on emotional manipulation. Whether pretended or real, anger and other forms of negativity usually increases the potential for shutting down. Instead, we advocate approaches that offer the greatest good for the most people using a positive demeanor as we do so. Expectancy versus rejection. As we use the term, we mean that as participants advocate their wants and needs, they do so with an attitude that others believe what they say is believable and reasonable. Even when others disagree with us about one thing or another, they usually respect an honest need. Here's a small story to illustrate this concept. A married couple I know was working on a kitchen remodel and doing the work themselves. The husband completed everything except for installing the baseboards along the floor. He kept ignoring them and putting off the work of completion. His wife would nag him from time to time, and he would offer one excuse after another, though fully intending to finish the job at some point. One day, his wife calmly, but with a bit of sadness, said to him, "You know, I feel like this house is a part of me, and when I see the missing baseboards, it makes me feel like something's missing in me, and it makes me sad." The husband, once he understood his wife's feelings and needs, finished the job that afternoon. There are several lessons embedded in that story, but for now, it illustrates the willingness of people to respond to needs. The story's moral is to honestly express your needs and have faith that others will understand and help if they can. The nonviolent communication approach. Dr. Marshall Rosenberg is the founder of the Center for Nonviolent Communication. He is the author of the immensely popular book, Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life. In his book, he advances an approach to self-advocacy that is very helpful. We have already talked about feelings and needs, but we'll add an additional step. First, state what you're feeling. Second, state what you need. And third, make a request. Let's look at each of these. First, we state what we are feeling as it relates to the present conflict. We must own our feelings and resist blaming others for how we feel. If we are angry, we might say that we're feeling angry, but we never say, "You made me angry." Notice we don't confuse feelings with evaluations. Sometimes people say, "I feel disrespected." But disrespect is a perception or an evaluation of what was said or done, and not a feeling. Feelings are the mental or physical sensations you have, such as a tightness in your chest, or an emotion such as frustration. Secondly, we connect our needs to what we are feeling. And thirdly, we make a request of the other person. So here's an example of how these three things might work together. I'm feeling upset because you said my project idea was no good, and you said this in front of everyone at the departmental meeting. I need respect. In the future, would you talk with me privately about any reservations you have about my work instead of saying them in front of my colleagues? Notice in this example, the person identifies their feelings as upset. Their need is respect, and their request is to privately visit about any reservations of their work. When used correctly, these three things, feelings, needs, and request, form the basis of a powerful yet nonviolent means of self-advocacy. Today, we discuss the importance of advocacy coupled with emotional intelligence. We reference Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent approach as a potential way to advocate for ourselves and others by stating our feelings, coupling them with our needs, and making a simple request. Emotionally intelligent advocacy is a powerful tool for peacemakers to arrive at mutually beneficial solutions that resolve conflict and drama. Our next lesson will discuss peacemaking principles about anger, assertiveness, and advocacy. We thank you for listening to today's podcast and encourage you to download a copy of this program's transcript so that you might better complete a short quiz over today's presentation.